Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten 774 here, bringing you my review of Nancy Drew's Secrets Can Kill Remastered. So my reviews are based on 5 different categories: plot, characters, setting and design, entertainment and gameplay value, and music and vibe. Each of those 5 categories is scored on a scale of 1 to 10 for a final score out of 50 and then a final corresponding letter grade. So let's get started with the plot of Secrets Can Kill Remastered. So this is a remastered version of Nancy's very first mystery. So a lot of what I'm going to be saying is going to be directly tied to the first mystery. They're basically indistinguishable. There are some plot differences overall, but you can almost consider them the same game, just refurbished almost. So this is Nancy's first mystery. She is asked to come to Florida by her Aunt Eloise because Aunt Eloise works at a school and one of the students at the school has just been murdered. So this is really unique in the Nancy Drew mysteries. She has only solved 2 murders. This one, and she won't solve another one until Deadly Device, which is mystery number 27. So it's going to be a long time before Nancy sees another murder mystery, which makes this unique and exciting as a plot angle. So Nancy is going to be undercover as a student at Paseo Del Mar High School, where the student Jake Rogers was murdered. And that's pretty much the plot. Nancy is undercover trying to figure out who murdered Jake and why. And that's the problem I have with this plot, is that there really isn't anything else. It's a well done plot. There's not anything like crucially wrong with it. Nancy tries to figure out the motives of all of the other students that could possibly have killed Jake. One problem I have, though, is that the 4 students, 4 I think? Yeah. Yes, the 4 students that would have a motive for killing Jake are the only ones that are in the school, and they all have a motive. There's no characters or suspects that don't have a motive for killing Jake, and it's just very realistic that the only ones that would have a reason for killing Jake are hanging out in the school where he was murdered. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The plot is simple in a way because it's kind of a classic murder mystery, and then you look for the motive, who would have wanted to kill Jake, who has the means, who would have been able to kill Jake. And again, they all have a motive and a mean, which is kind of cool. It's nice that they did it that way because then it's hard to figure out who the culprit really is, but it's not super realistic almost. They also added in the remastered version a new character, which changed the plot up just enough from the original to make it kind of new, but it also made the plot a lot more obvious. So it was very easy to tell who the culprit was going to be towards the very beginning of the game, not even towards the middle of the game. It wasn't difficult to figure out who it was going to be. So the plot is okay, but it does have some flaws. So overall, I give the plot of Secrets Can Kill Remastered a 6 out of 10. So next we move on to characters. There are 5 characters that we see in this game. There's Hal Tanaka, who is a foreign exchange student from Japan. There is Daryl Gray, who is student council president and blonde hair and just kind of the popular guy. They have a lot of character tropes in this. There's Hulk Sanchez, who is the cliche jock in the game. He's a football player, and that's pretty much all he talks about. There's Connie Watson, who is the hall monitor and the only female character in the entire game. And then we have the character that they added for Secrets Can Kill Remastered, Detective Beach, who is Nancy's undercover contact with the police department. So there are those 5 characters. The characters they're fine. I think the main issue is that the conversations that Nancy has with these characters are the same as the ones that she had in the very first version of Secrets Can Kill, of her very first mystery. So the character interaction was very underdeveloped in the first game. The conversations were mostly the characters talking and Nancy responding with like a 3-word question. And it's just not a very natural way of conversing, and Nancy really doesn't get anywhere by repeating what the other character said just in a shorter way. So the character interaction itself isn't terribly interesting. It is interesting to try and figure out what all of their motives and means would be for the murder, but overall the characters themselves are pretty unforgettable. The culprit is also way too obvious, which is always an issue for me when you're talking about characters. If you've played any Nancy Drew games before, it's pretty easy to tell who's going to be the culprit. Even if you haven't played Nancy Drew games before, it's really not that difficult. So overall, I think the characters are fine. They're definitely decent characters, but there's nothing special about them. There's nothing really interesting in their dialogue that makes them stand out. So I would give characters for Secrets Can Kill Remastered a 6 out of 10. Next, we move to setting and design, which takes into consideration where the game takes place and how well that's executed into the story, as well as background design and character design. So Secrets Can Kill Remastered takes place in Florida, but we aren't really bombarded with the fact that we're in Florida, which I do like. I don't like when the setting takes over as the main point of the game and leaves the plot in the dust. So the setting was done well in this case, in that it was mentioned, it was hinted at, but it wasn't too obvious. So the design in the game was also pretty good. We have environmental design and background design that's nice. Maxine's Diner looks really cool. That's one of the locations. Paseo Del Mar High looks really good. The problem I have with the design of Paseo Del Mar High is that we only walk around in the hallways, the library, and a little bit of a lounge space, I suppose. Connie and Hal both hang out in kind of a loungy type area. There's no doors that really look like they lead to classrooms. We're close to a gym and we can kind of see where the gym would be, but we don't really get to see that either. So it's just kind of a very basic version of what a high school would be. So there's not really a whole lot of exploration to do because you're just walking around the hallways. The library in Secrets Can Kill Remastered is very cool because there's lots of really neat cookies, which I really like. In the remastered version, they do a throwback to all of the games that they had done previously before doing this remastered version, and it came out around the same time as Shadow at the Water's Edge did, and that was mystery number 23. So there was a lot of really cool hints to previous games in the game itself, but that doesn't make up for the fact that it doesn't have its own exploratory feel. It's pretty basic. It's not horrible though. The game looks really nice. The graphics are very well done. It's just not terribly interesting. So I give the setting and design for Secrets Can Kill Remastered an 8 out of 10. Next we go to entertainment and gameplay value, which considers how fun the game is to play and how easy it is to replay later on. Unfortunately, I can't give Secrets Can Kill Remastered a very good score in this category. The game is fun to play to an extent. The problem with this game is that you, besides a little bit of character interaction, which as I mentioned before isn't terribly developed, the only other thing we do is walk around the halls of Paseo Del Mar High, look for hidden puzzles on bulletin boards that you don't really need to solve. The only reason you're looking at these bulletin boards is so you can find combinations of elements and directions. For the one puzzle, there's two puzzles technically. There's a slider puzzle that helps you get a key at the very beginning of the game, but the only other puzzle in the game has to do with those elements and the directions. So there's a real lack of exploration and puzzles, which makes up a lot of the core of a mystery, is trying to look around for clues. And the clues in this game are just so repetitive that they don't become... They never are really interesting, which is unfortunate because I think this game had a lot of potential to be a really fun game because, again, it's one of only 2 murder mysteries that Nancy has ever solved, and murders should be terrifying and really exciting. They should be kind of an adrenaline rush, but you really don't get much of that. You get all of the boring aftermath and Not a lot of really good exploration. Replaying the game also isn't that fun. Once you've seen all the cookies, the magic of the game kind of wears off. So overall, I have to give Secrets Can Kill Remastered a 4 out of 10 for entertainment and gameplay value. And finally, we come to music and vibe. I think Secrets Can Kill Remastered does pretty well in this category. The music is pretty good. It's decent. It has kind of a high school type feel. It's music that you would assume would be linked to a high school in a sense. The vibe of the game is also pretty good. There are a lot of really subtle, a little bit of subtle scare factor. Like when you are exploring the library at Paseo del Mar High, you'll just be walking around and then all of a sudden you'll hear a door like close really hard, and then there'll be a little bit of an alarm going off. And that's really kind of creepy because you know that somebody has murdered one of the students, and then you hear this kind of far off noise. But that noise is never explained, and it's never... Nancy doesn't really say anything about it. So it makes it more creepy in that sense that she doesn't ever figure out what that was. The same thing happens in the teacher's lounge. You hear kind of like a crashing sound, and you never figure out what that is. Nancy doesn't really react to it. It's just for the players to increase that vibe of creepiness, because this is a murder mystery, and you should feel creeped out when you're solving it because there's a murderer on the loose. And I think the game excels in that way. The problem I have is that they should have done more of that. A lot of the music is pretty light-hearted. There's a lot of music that plays in the school that's done pretty well, but the rest of the music isn't really as intense as it maybe should be. And it shouldn't be like really crazily intense the entire time, but it should make us feel uneasy when there's a murderer on the loose. So the vibe is done well. I think it just wasn't done enough. So I give Secrets Can Kill Remastered an 8 out of 10 in the category of music and vibe. So if we add up all of our scores, we have a 6 for plot, 6 for characters, 8 for setting and design, 4 for entertainment and gameplay value, 8 for music and vibe, which gives us a total of 32 out of 50 and a final grade of a D+. Now, does that grade mean that you should not play this game? Absolutely not. You absolutely should play this game. The reason for that is that this is the first game in the Nancy Drew series. The first version of Secrets Can Kill has since been discontinued. It's going to be harder to find, and to be honest, it's not really fun to play. I gave the original Secrets Can Kill a 3 on entertainment and gameplay value because you need to switch discs. It's extremely clunky. The characters are not in 3D yet. They're only 2D. So if you're looking for a more modern version of Nancy's very first case, I recommend the remastered version. And you should play Nancy's first case if you want to understand the rest of the series, because this is the mystery that started it all. And that is reason alone to play this mystery, because you need to understand Nancy's origin case. It is a good, solid mystery. I mean, every Nancy Drew mystery is good in a sense. I grade these games against one another, so a D+ means that it's a D+ compared to all of the other grades, not compared to all games that were ever created. It would be a much higher grade if that was the case, because it's a Nancy Drew game and it is still fantastic. It's not the best Nancy Drew game by far, but it's a very good introduction to Nancy as a character and to the mysteries that will eventually become her legacy. So that is my review for Secrets Can Kill Remastered. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. See you soon!